and once again, welcome to Studio 7. I'm your host, Lenny Shaw. Anyone who's paid even close attention to the monumental events that have been going on in Europe over the past year might spot the name of a particular political organization that keeps on popping up. They are called the Greens. What is less known is that the Greens have expanded far beyond Europe and have become a worldwide movement. The Greens started in the late 1970s in West Germany and Switzerland by groups of environmentalists and peace activists. Eventually, a few of them managed to land seats in the West German legislature. In the mid-1980s, the Green Party made its first appearance here in the United States. Now, since then, they have won election to a few offices, mostly localized offices, most notably in upstate New York. But for the first time, the Green Party has decided to run a candidate for the United States Congress. I am very, very honored to have that candidate with me here today. Her name is Mindy Lorenz. She is running in California's congressional 19th district, which encompasses most of Santa Barbara and Ventura County. In addition to that, she's regularly the head of her local Green chapter called the Santa Clara River Greens. And she works teaching art history at Cal State Northridge, and she lives in Ventura with her teenage daughter, Brianna. And thank you very much for joining me, Mindy.
It's a pleasure.
And I particularly have to thank you because it is very, very hot today, and Mindy had to drive down from Ventura, and that was quite a challenge, so thank you. And I'm sorry for all the trouble.
Glad to be here.
Okay, most people who know about the Greens assume that you are primarily involved with environmental causes. Is that an oversimplification?
I think it really is. We are very much committed to making the links between environmental, ecological issues and social justice issues. And I think, in fact, this has been one of the failings of other political traditions in the recent past to, in fact, not make those links, because toxics affect all kinds of things, not just the plants, not just the animals, but certainly people, and very tragically, poor people, people living in inner cities, often people of color, have the most devastating effects of toxics and other ecological problems, hitting them the hardest.
Well, is this then where you feel you would part with traditional leftism?
I think it's one of the areas, certainly. I think the traditional left has been not making the right balance and connecting those kinds of issues. The look at the balance between the needs of other species, the planet herself, as well as the needs of people. Also not being serious enough about making a thoroughgoing commitment to nonviolence in every aspect of how we do things, our personal lives, how we hold our meetings, as well as a vision for a kind of political foreign policy.
Do you feel, talking about foreign policy, we have just been through a watershed time in this century. The primary issue that this country was involved in were East-West issues. That has faded, it has almost collapsed as an issue. Is this a vacuum that you think a movement like the Greens can get more popular?
Well, I think one of the biggest sort of boosts for us in this country is people are perceiving correctly that big changes are possible. Mm-hmm. And Greens are talking about fundamental changes. We're not just talking about short-term little patch jobs here and there. We're
Right.
talking about, in the long run, what kind of structural changes do we need to make to put ourselves on a more sustainable set of paths. And up until the last year and a half, I think a lot of people were so cynical, were so hopeless about the possibility of making big changes, that this vision that change is possible is helping people listen to us more sympathetically.
A lot of your, I understand you do have positions on just about any issue you can think of, and I've read a lot of the Green literature. But there still is an emphasis on the environment. Now, what do you do to those cynics that are out there that see you just as a leftover of, well, the 60s, that all you're preaching is back to nature? What's your response to that?
Well, if it's the idea of back to nature in understanding that indeed we are part of nature, that we cannot be fooled by whatever level of technology we have, by whatever level of, kind of industrial sophistication, to think that we no longer have to pay attention to the rhythms and the realities and the restraints of nature. So in that sense, we do want to regenerate the awareness that we are part of nature and that we have to recognize that there are limits to what nature, what our natural resources, what other species, in fact, what our own population can withstand. It's not a sense of back to nature in terms of going back, pre-industrial society, back to the Neolithic age. Those kinds of accusations are grossly inadequate, and I think really are coming from a place of fear in those who are making those kinds of allegations, because they realize, in fact, that we are not about that exaggerated vision. We do favor appropriate technology, but the key word there is appropriate. How does the technology serve the overall picture in terms of what it's doing, not just a short-term vision of profit or a short-term fix, but taking what we might call the Native American view of looking 7 generations into the future about the impact of decisions that we make.
One of the things, the interesting philosophies in the green movement is a seeming ambivalence on the whole concept of leadership. Now, very briefly, because this can get a little bit complicated, I read in a lot of your literature you talk about we have to move away from hierarchy. We have to move away from patriarchal values. What does this all mean?
Well, our analysis of power is that the concept of power has been the power over things and the power over other groups of people. And we want another sense of power that says that power really comes from within people themselves, from within groups of people, to cooperate together, not to have domination one over another. So we feel that in terms of leadership, our leaders need to be designated, and that's important so that people know who we are and what we're doing, and spokespersons need to be designated, and candidates need to be run. But we have to have a system of accountability, and we have to be careful that the people that we designate as our leaders and as our spokespersons have come up through the movement so that they understand what the issues are. They understand how decisions get made within a consensus-seeking process, which we should talk a little bit more about, and understand that part of what's wrong with politics today is that there is very little accountability. There's no sense that the candidates, once they're elected, come back and talk about what the issues of the people who got them into office still are.
Now, in a lot of your meetings, you were telling me you actually do not vote. You use what you called a modified consensus. How does that work? And in fact, does it work?
Well, the Green Party here in California just started working on our bylaws, and part of the bylaws that we've already adopted is what we call a modified consensus decision-making process. That recognizes that consensus really is a fine way to make decisions, because it means that everybody, or almost everybody, has worked through the discussion of the issue to the extent that they have been able to have their points of view heard, and that everybody has a part of the truth, and wisdom comes not from one person but from everybody. So in that regard, consensus is desirable.
But is that always realistic? Because there are some people that are just shy and don't speak up. There are some people who wouldn't come on this show because they don't like going before cameras.
Well, I've worked in a lot of political groups over the years, and until I was with the Greens, I never felt that the political groups that I was with were so sensitive to those kinds of needs, in fact, especially the recognition of gender balance, and that often women are very hesitant to speak out in political groups because of years of experience, years of
They've been conditioned not to.
Of negative experiences in those kinds of circumstances. But we do recognize that we have to make timely decisions. People don't have endless numbers of hours in terms of meetings, and within the constraints of an agenda, we have to work within the time limits set. And so that's where the modification of consensus comes into it. if we're not able to reach a full consensus within the time limits of an agenda item, we do have a way to move to a vote.
Okay, so that's why it's modified consensus.
Right.
You alluded to this earlier, but I want to ask again because I think it's a very important point. Traditionally, movements like yours have not held much appeal to the working class and certainly not to the underclass. Why do you think that is, and how do you hope to improve upon that?
I think part of that goes back to what we were saying about the tradition of the left, who over the years have, I think, to their credit, represented the issues of the underclass, of people of color, of labor, and that's all to the good. But in not having recognized enough of the connections between what the environmentalists were talking about, I think there's been misperceptions on both sides, with the environmentalists not recognizing social justice issues and the left maybe not taking into consideration the environmental issues. That's changing. And I think, obviously, if you look at the history of something like the United Farm Workers, they have been active for years making the connections. This is nothing new that we're telling communities of color. What's new is realizing that we have a job to do in terms of reaching out and saying, we recognize the work that you've been doing, and we recognize that all of these ecological issues have a bearing on the lives of everybody. Now, how can we pull together? One of the things I'm very proud of is that the International Indian Treaty Council has just issued a press release in the last few weeks indicating that they feel that the Green Party here in California are their natural allies, that we should work very closely together. And in fact, they've instructed their board to do whatever is necessary to bring that about. This is what we're building.
And that's been a group that really hasn't gotten involved in politics, the Indians, notoriously so.
We have a People of Color caucus at the state level. We have a People of Color caucus at the national level. This is something that we're very assertively addressing.
Also, I think a lot of people forget, even within the confines of environmental issues, you're not just talking about oil drilling or national parks, you are talking about toxic waste dumps, which tend to be in poor areas and industrial areas, like in South Central Los Angeles, for example. But you look around at this culture. We are a consumer culture. We love our junk. And particularly younger people are very materialistic. The whole yuppie phenomena. How do you get around this strong materialistic motivation?
I think the whole social fabric of our society is in deep crisis. It's a crisis of lack of meaning. The Greens are addressing these deeper issues. We're not just a superficial reform movement. We realize that the kind of hopelessness that people feel about their lives is leading them to patterns of addiction, to patterns of very short-term self-interest. Those things change as people get a sense that there is some vision for the future that's positive, a vision of the future that says everybody's included and everybody has a right to an equitable distribution of what's out there to share. So I think it's those deeper underlying issues that really need to be recognized. In a more short-term sense, we're just inundated with advertising, with a generation of all kinds of false desires. And I think some of the limits on advertising in terms of tobacco advertising, alcohol advertising, those are very positive developments that we support.
I know that you have stated, and your group has stated, that the environmentally safer products, because of our system being the way it is, tend to be more expensive. I know it is a lot cheaper for me to get generic dishwashing liquid, for example, than to go to a Mrs. Gooch's or a place like that and get environmentally safe things. And that's mainly because of our whole, we subsidize unecological practices.
Right, we do, and we have to change that. And one of our main policy areas is what we call true cost pricing, so that the prices of things reflect not just a very narrow understanding of the impact of that, what that product costs, but the health costs of it, the cleanup costs of making it and producing it, the whole spectrum. I think it is true that the costs of some things will go up, But I also believe that the cost of other things will come down, and that we have to be willing to face, as people are in Eastern Europe and elsewhere, we have to be willing to go through perhaps a difficult period of short-term adjustment to get ourselves back in better balance with all of this. And this is where something like restructuring our tax system is essential. Restructuring it so that it is not the regressive system that we have now. We have seen over the past 10 or 15 years an appalling discrepancy between those taxes paid by the very wealthy and those paid by the middle and low income. This has got to be turned around. Health care has got to be provided. We have to cut down on the obscene amount of money that we spend on military and develop a healthier economy where we know that if we invest X number of dollars in civilian production, we're going to get more jobs than the same number of dollars going into military production. So I think when Greens talk about looking at the whole picture, these are some of the related issues that we're looking at. And you can't just say, well, it's going to cost us more over here, and that's the end of the discussion. Because other areas of our lives are going to be helped out. We're not going to have to pay $600 a month for health insurance.
Yeah, yeah. And now, you mentioned military spending. Is the Green movement, do you feel you are a pacifist movement? Because if you look at what is happening in the world, whether in China, where a peaceful movement was crushed, and then a lot of people, currently when we're taping this, Nelson Mandela is in the country, and he says he will not renounce his armed struggle. Is there a difference of opinion within your movement on the question of violence?
I don't believe so. We are completely dedicated to nonviolence. We also realize, however, that this is a very complex issue. And I think in struggles in other parts of the world that do involve armed struggle, we have to look at those from the point of view of where is social justice, where are the causes of social justice being upheld the most, and try to lend whatever support we can to that, whether it's through boycotts, whether it's through other forms of resistance that we can do to show solidarity with the forces of social justice as we see it.
There's too much violence for its own sake, and you had mentioned, again, military spending, and our problem now is we're looking for an enemy. And we've been deprived of an enemy, and it's, so that's a very interesting thing to talk about.
Well, let me just say something about that. I think that we may be seeing the subsiding of the enemy of communism, but we have the very forceful continuation of the enemy in terms of racism and sexism, and the kinds of struggles that we have to mount to continue to overcome racism and sexism, particularly in this country and in this society, are as large as they ever were, if not greater than the situation 20 years ago.
Right. A lot of people have said the war on drugs is a war on black people.
It's a war on the civil liberties of people here in this country, and it's a means of staging both overt and covert military operations in other countries.
Okay, on a slightly lighter note, we've just been through Earth Day. There was a lot of hype, but I think it raised people's awareness, because you couldn't stop hearing about it, about what they can do to help our planet. Is there some cynicism on your part? Do you think with all the hype, a lot of it insincere from a lot of the media, do you think that there's some good that can come out of it, or are you find yourself just a little bit cynical about the whole thing?
Well, I think some good has come out of Earth Day, and anything that increases public awareness or the public perception of the needs of the environment is all to the good. The kind of cynicism that I feel is a situation, for instance, excuse me, where you have the travesty of a company like Peabody Coal in Arizona that supported the Earth Day activities in that state. They made a big deal out of saying, golly gee, we're planting 10 acres of pine trees and aren't we good guys? But what they weren't saying is that they were in the process of clear-cutting 9,000 acres in order to strip mine. So this is the kind of two-faced situation that we have with many large corporations. And we have to be extremely vigilant and extremely perceptive to not slip into the media-generated propaganda, really, and the government-generated propaganda that serves the corporate cause, that says that it's mostly your individual efforts in your own home that are going to save the environment. As important as those are, that is not the primary issue in terms of what's degrading the environment.
It's hard to do it. I mean, I know I still will occasionally use styrofoam. It's sometimes hard to avoid it. What I like to do is, instead of completely stopping to use it, is that, okay, I'll get that deli dinner in the market in styrofoam, but then maybe write a letter to the market. Say, we are concerned about the environment, and we'd like to keep on shopping here, and perhaps if more people do that, maybe not because they're good people, but a lot of these companies will make the right decision.
Well, there again, I in no way want to say that these individual efforts are not critical. They are. But we need the federal government taking the lead. In fact, we should wake up tomorrow morning and have a federal government that takes the lead in saying we are banning chlorofluorocarbons. We are going to have a nuclear test ban treaty. We are going to have my first piece of legislation that I would like to sponsor, we would call the Federal Recycling Act, that would mandate the use of all recycled materials at every level of the federal government. Those are the kinds of large legislative changes, and also holding corporations and corporate executives responsible for their actions.
Okay, we have less than 5 minutes, so I'd like to hear about your campaign. First of all, people should understand it's a write-in campaign.
It is, right, and we are doing a write-in campaign because the Green Party does not have ballot status yet here in the state. We did want to run as a Green Party. We wanted to be able to put that out there, and so we had to do a write-in campaign. We also felt that this was a modest way of involving ourselves in a race where we're able to relate local, national, and global issues in the district. I would encourage people who either have liked what they heard in the show today or have heard about the Green Party to go out and get a voter registration form and register with the Green Party. Just check the box that says Other and write Green on the line, and you're going to help build a new political party in the state. We need about 80,000 people to register Green by January of '92 in order for us to have ballot access for the '92 primary.
I would like to add there will be an address and a phone number if you would like to help the Greens at the end of the show. Now, you're wearing a lot of hats. You're an art history professor, you're raising a teenage daughter, and you're running for Congress. And you work in the San Fernando Valley and you live in Ventura, and I know what traffic is like. What's it been like for you? Is it difficult?
It's busy. But I've been with the Greens for 6 years, since our inception in this country. And it's just so energizing to see what's happened over that period of time, and now to be taking it to the next level of establishing a political party here in the state. So as much energy as I put out, I can assure you I get far more in return.
And unfortunately, I'd like to vote for you, but you're not running in Los Angeles. I guess I'll just have to vote for the Democrat again.
We'll have Greens running here shortly.
Yeah, this might be, it's a bigger media market. It might take a lot more money and a lot more. So you are going to be a write-in candidate, and this is the Santa Barbara Ventura area?
Right, the 19th Congressional District. And
it's where Reagan's Ranch is.
Indeed it is.
I don't know if he's registered to vote there or in Bel Air. I wonder if we can get his support. That would be interesting.
Well, gee, if he's listening, he can register Green too.
Tell him the ecosystem of his ranch might last a little longer if you're representing him in Congress.
Our water conservation policies will help him out.
How's your daughter reacting to all this?
She's very supportive. She's been around my political activism all of her life, and we talk a lot about it. We make decisions together. She had to okay when I was doing civil disobedience over the years, and she had to give her okay on this too.
Okay, I think we got about 1 minute left as I as far as I know. Okay, I would like to thank you again for coming in this horrible heat and coming all this distance from Ventura. I know it's not easy, Mindy. I wish you luck in all your campaign activities and in your other green activities and in your art history work. And I would just like to make a program note here. There's going to be a very special hour-long live Studio 7 on October the 6th. That's a Saturday afternoon from 3 to 4 o'clock with call-in. The subject is going to be, should drugs be legalized? And I'm going to have a debate here. I'm not exactly sure who I'm going to get. I tend to think a lot of them should be legalized. So I know that's a controversial position, and I welcome your support. I even welcome your opposition. So thank you very much again, Mindy.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
And good luck on your campaign.
Thank you.
And hope you join us again real soon for Studio 7.